Hi there, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Delivered Podcast. I'm Athena Estelle, and I'm your host. On this week's episode, I am super excited to have a new guest to us. She is a well-known psychologist. She has worked in the field for quite a time, and now she is a life coach. So I am very excited to introduce Jesseca. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So just to start, give the listeners a little background on your education, where you focused prior, and currently where your attention is.
Yeah, so kind of have some motley resume. So I used to work in mental health for many years. I was a therapist, worked all the way through graduate school, got my undergrad at CU Boulder, and then got my master's and PhD at it's now called Sophia University, which is in Palo Alto, California. So I did mental health for a really long time and then switched over into doing more admin work in corporate healthcare for 13 years and watched my soul disintegrate and wanted to work with people again. I really missed it. So now in the last year, I started my own business and I wanted to be a life coach and when I wanted to work with people again and wanted to just have the freedom that life coaching provides because I wanted to work with whoever I wanted to work with. So that's where I'm at now. My experience with PPD comes from that mental health era when I worked with children and families. And of course, women with postpartum depression was a big part of that. So when you reached out, I was like, oh, I can fill my cup again. So thanks for inviting me onto your podcast.
Yes. I've talked about it a couple times. My friends who listen to this all the time are probably sick of hearing it, but I think social media can be so helpful. And, I found that amazing group on Facebook, Find a Guest, Be a Guest. And you popped up and I was just like, oh my goodness, she would be perfect.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I'm definitely excited to pick your brain. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we did have a really good conversation pre-recording about the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we talked about it. You heard me mess it up. So
Oh, no worries.
for the listeners, go ahead and just kind of break down the difference and what one might do that the other doesn't do and vice versa.
So a psychiatrist is an actual medical doctor. So they have an MD. That's what they go to school for. And then they usually have a year or two of psychiatry. And so they specialize in psychiatric care, in mental health, and they can prescribe medications because they are a medical doctor. So that is more what psychiatry is. And, takes many different forms, but those are the folks who are overseeing, psych units in hospitals, for example. I have my PhD in psychology, and so that is more the clinical route. So I can't prescribe medications or anything like that. I can definitely say, hey, I can work with your doctor on your symptoms and what we think you might benefit from. But it's more the clinical route. It's more research-based, also talk therapy. Those kinds of things go into the PhD program. Because when I started my program, all I wanted to do was research and teach. And then that's just not where life led me. So here I am.
I understand that.
Yeah. So I've got the piled higher and deeper, and here I am.
Okay, awesome. That was a good description because I think sometimes we think that they're both interchangeable, whereas
no, not at all.
They're definitely not. Yeah,
not at all. Yeah.
So thanks for that. Currently, you're a life coach.
I do have a life coach, first of all. But yeah.
I have a life coach. I am a life coach.
Yeah,
What would you say, maybe not diagnosis specific, but maybe like broad, what are the type of clients that you're dealing on like a day-to-day basis? Is there a typical client that's coming to you?
So it's kind of morphing a little bit right now. So as advertised, if you look on my website, which I know will be in the notes, I'm a career, life, and leadership coach. So there's kind of two different sides to my business. So I do work with individuals, and then I also help with staff training, leadership skills. But also, people will come to me for all sorts of different reasons. I'm noticing people will come to me because they're like, hey, I have a lot of unresolved grief. Can you help me with that? I'm like, absolutely. Hey, can you help me with this? People keep coming to me for all different reasons. If they have a block in their life and they're just not able to figure it out and they're not able to do what they really want to do with their life. And then they come to me and we figure it out together. So as we record this, I'm kind of in the middle of riding that wave because I'm working with all sorts of different people and women. Like I'm talking with someone who's a new mom who already has 5 kids. And she's like, I'm just so overwhelmed. I don't know how to do life anymore. And I'm like, well, let's figure that out. So that's kind of who I work with, is these people who come to me with those blocks, and we need to remove them so they can really live their best life.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you say as part of your life coaching, since you do have that psychology background, do you incorporate some type of, I don't want to say therapy, but kind of?
Yeah, so it's very skills based. So the difference between life coaching and traditional therapy is it's shorter. A lot of people come to me when they have had a lot of therapy, but they're still missing something. They're still missing some skills. They're like, I don't want to talk about my mom for 10 years. I just want to know how to deal with this and how to move on. And that's what life coaching brings. And that's why I like working with it. It's also much shorter acting. People get that therapeutic transformation without going into the nitty gritty. So a lot of clients that I have already been in therapy. Of course, I've been in therapy. It's great. I highly recommend, but I don't want to say that I don't. But life coaching just has a shorter acting effect on a specific problem. And I think that's what a lot of times people are looking for.
Yeah, I've said this before also. I think where I struggled with finding the right therapist was that when you're like a type A doer, you want like a to-do list. Like, try this, try this. If that doesn't work, try this. And so I think life coaching, I think it's genius.
That's a life coach. Yeah. What do you want to work on? What are your top 3 goals? What's your number 1? Okay, we're doing that first. Let's go. I love the model. Yeah, it's great. I love it. I love working with people in this way. It's very, very different. Of course, when I was doing traditional therapy, I loved it too, but I really just love this model of just focusing for a very short time in a really intense way and seeing people transform from that.
That's really cool. Now, in the life coaching, do you treat a decent amount of postpartum moms?
I haven't yet, but it really depends and it takes all kinds. Like I said, a lot of people are coming to me with all sorts of different things. So I have had people that have had postpartum depression, or, I'm working with a woman right now who was previously diagnosed and was treated really badly by the mental health system and is still dealing with some stuff from that. It's things like that come up for folks. So my focus is not specifically PPD, but because I had my experience, I thought I could speak to the topic and definitely feel comfortable if that's something that if people hear me speak and they want help with, and at least on a coaching level, I can help and then refer on or work with their therapist as well, if that's something that people are interested in.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Now, from like a psychology aspect of the postpartum depression, when you were treating those clients or even just thinking about them in all of your experience, is there a scale or a reference guide that you would discuss with your clients? Like the line between this is acceptable baby blues and this is postpartum depression, we need help. How did you help them navigate that?
It's so hard, right? Because the symptoms of postpartum depression are so much like the daily life of being a new mom. So if you Google something on postpartum depression, you're going to get a lot of the same stuff just from being the stresses of being, someone with it, that just had a baby. But I think what would be effective is if we go through the symptoms and kind of go through like where it crosses the line. So we can go through some common symptoms if you want and really delineate where it crosses the line. There is a scale, but my preference is to monitor your symptoms. And also, don't do that in a bubble. If there's one takeaway from my talk today, I would say have an advocate or a couple of advocates. It can be your partner, it can be a close friend, it can be a family member, but have some close advocates that you can openly talk to about your risk factors, your symptoms, and make a plan for what you're going to do about it as they go through this journey with you. One of those things can be using a questionnaire or a scale. The big ones, the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale, that's the big one. You can find the PDF on the internet, but I recommend using it in a specific way. I wouldn't do it on yourself because you can kind of manipulate the answers. If you're going to use a scale, if you're going to use a questionnaire, that's fine, but have your advocate do it and then don't have them tell you the scoring so that you don't know how it's being scored. The plan is, okay, we're going to do this. And if it's time to make an appointment, we're making an appointment. And then you hand the questionnaire to your physician or your OB. But I wouldn't do it yourself because we can so easily be like, today's a really bad day. I'll take it tomorrow. Or, well, it's bad, but it's really not that bad on a specific question. And we can just so easily hide those facts. So I would say a better option is monitoring your symptoms and having open discussions about your symptoms with your advocates. But if you're going to use a questionnaire, I would say that's how you can do it. And that's not the only one out there. That's just the big one. Yeah, that's a clinical tool. And I'm sure you have others that you like, but that's the big guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's break down some risk factors. So main risk factors, there's a lot of research that suggests that if you experience anxiety, and I'm not saying even at a clinical level, if you've been undiagnosed, or there's a lot of people out there who had panic attacks one time and were never diagnosed or have never gone to any treatment or anything like that, or maybe had a depressive episode in their life, but never got treatment for it. So even if they don't have a diagnosis, if you've experienced any anxiety or depression, that's a major risk factor for PPD and also for postpartum anxiety, which is super underdiagnosed. A lot of people mesh those two things. It's actually two different diagnoses. But so that's one. If you have a weak or troubled support system, that can be a huge risk factor, or other family stressors. Or a big one is also a recent death in the family, because even in people who aren't pregnant, grief can trigger a depressive episode. So you just want to watch that. I know that there's a lot of women where they had a death in the family and their grief actually triggered their PPD when they had no other risk factors. So just something to really be aware of is those risk factors. So some other things to be aware of, in about half of all cases, the symptoms started during pregnancy. And that's not something a lot of people know. They think the post part is just after. 50% of all cases of PPD start in pregnancy. So the window for diagnosis is actually 6 months prior to birth and up to 12 months after birth. So start monitoring your symptoms and making plans just as significantly as if you're picking the colors for the nursery. This needs to be a part of the planning. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. They think, oh, it's just the stress of being pregnant, or for a lot of people don't like being pregnant. It kind of sucks. But you might be having some clinical stuff going on. So just something to really be aware of. Let's kind of go over some of the big examples. Some of the most common symptoms are overwhelming emotions and crying, sleep dysfunction, which that's so hard to differentiate whether that's just there's a baby crying all the freaking time or I really have something going on. Then lethargy is another one, not wanting to get out of bed, and super common, and or hygiene, not wanting to take showers, things like that. But that's also being a new mom. And then on the extreme side, there's thoughts of self-harm, panic attacks, rage, thoughts of harming the baby. So that's more on the extreme example, but it's all on a spectrum, and you just kind of have to figure out where you fall. So, like, for example, crying or overwhelming emotions, they're supposed to feel like waves. They come in and they go out. They come in and overwhelm you, and then they go out and recede, and you get some relief. But if you're crying all day, or if the emotions are so overwhelming for really long periods of time, and it takes you a really long time to calm down, and that's not the normal way that you process emotions, that's where that crosses that line. And you need to be aware of that and be like, okay, I'm checking that box. Sleep, sleep's hard. Sleep's hard when you have a new baby. But if you can sleep and can't get to sleep, you want to, but you can't sleep. All right, we're going to check that box. That's a line, because for new parents, the second you can get to sleep, you do. I mean, it's hard to not sleep. And that's also another risk factor, by the way, is insomnia, which I have personal experience with that because I've suffered from insomnia my whole life. So just something to be aware of. And then let's talk about the lethargy. So if you don't want to get out of bed one day, I am not making it to the shower for a couple of days, like, that's totally normal. If it's been a week, if your hygiene's starting to go and you're starting to really isolate yourself, all right, we're going to check that box, because you should want to go out. You should, as soon as you can, you should want to go out. You should want to do something outside of your house, or outside of just being a lunch cart to, this new little thing that's like feeding you all the time. You should want to go out with friends and see people and show off the baby and all of those things. So I hope that helps a little bit in terms of the symptoms. Yes, that's normal, but it crosses the line at some point.
You said two things that stuck out to me. The sleep, because I started noticing she was like sleeping almost through the night at the point that my insomnia started. And I was just like stark awake, a cat on the ceiling, just, nothing. Just, And so that's kind of, I think, the main symptom I had, other than the anxiety. But so interesting that you say a death can trigger it, which makes sense. But at the time, my grandmother was quickly declining. And then she actually passed when I was hospitalized on the psych unit. And I just felt so much guilt for just so many things. I just always promised her that I'd be in the hospital holding her hand. And I always imagined myself there when she took her last breath, and to miss all of that. And, COVID was still rampant.
Oh, gosh.
But then to miss her funeral too. It was almost like, I've had this conversation with my husband, Chris, a couple times. It was almost I was on like a roller coaster, and I would start to feel a smidge better, and then something would happen and it'd be like, whoosh. And then I'd feel like a little bit better, and then whoosh. And then, and I mean, I guess that's life. Something one of my prior therapists always said is that healing is not linear. You're not just swimming along a little stream. It's so easy. Just this beautiful line, peaks and valleys, right? But I think the way you broke down those symptoms and kind of what is, I don't love the word normal, because who's defining normal, but talking about the symptoms, like what is acceptably normal for postpartum, and then kind of thinking, what for yourself is not. I knew also, on top of the sleeping, when I lost that, it's funny that you mentioned the showering, because my poor dad, I remember he was here helping my husband, and that man would have to like barter with me to get me in the shower. He'd be like, we have to go see the therapist in an hour. You need to get in the shower now. And I'm like, I don't want to get in the shower. And he was like, why are we arguing about taking a shower? And I was like, I just don't care. I literally
Yeah.
don't care. I'll wear a hat. It does not matter.
Right.
And I remember in that moment, I didn't care. I had no insight to even think about it. But looking back, it was just like, wow, that was not me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge hygiene's a big symptom for any mental illness because
Mm,
the cognitive load of you just trying to breathe and get through the day is so high for someone dealing with something like this. And it's
mhm.
like, yeah, of course you don't care. Of course, what's a shower? Like,
Right.
who cares? You know what I'm dealing with in here? Like, it's really because the shower is like out there. It's an existential thing. It's not right here in front of your face. What's in front of your face is that roller coaster. So it's
Mhm,
just, I mean, that's all you're focusing on, and you're just trying to survive.
mhm.
But it's a huge risk factor. And that's why, it sounds like, your dad and your husband were your advocates. So
Oh,
that's why you need those advocates. That's why you need that plan so that you have
mhm,
people that you can say, you know what, here's what's going on with me, or they can see it
mhm,
and they can advocate on your behalf. And you can even have them, you can sign releases with a physician that are super, super narrow that just say, this person can make an appointment for me and attend it with me. You don't need any of your other medical history or diagnosis or whatever, but even just having your advocates with that power is
mhm,
huge because you might not be able to do that. And you don't
mhm.
know if you're going to be able to or not. So that's why it
Right.
has to be a part of that plan,
That's genius. I like that.
along with the colors of the nursery and what type of logo you're going to hang over the bed. It's so important.
And that literally, it's just
Yeah.
wild. It's interesting that you say that about the advocates because my personality at baseline is like very outgoing, very Greek. I could like talk to a wall. It's just who I am. But then I think when I was going through that, it was almost like I had on cement blinders and I was
Mhm.
just surviving and I didn't tell really anybody. I mean, it was obviously like my immediate family, my parents, my sister, my husband, his family, and
Mhm.
then a few close girlfriends here in town. And so if I would say anything to anyone listening is really follow Dr. Jessica's advice and mine is that
Mhm.
you shouldn't be that one person on that island. There should
Right.
be someone with you, whether it's a partner, like you said, it's a friend, a family member,
Mhm.
somebody who you can dump on and cry and vent and help with appointments, all those things. I mean, my dad and Chris both know, and I've told them multiple times, if it weren't for the Lord in heaven and them, this body would be underground.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah.
fact. Yeah, I love that you said that about the advocate. I think that's very important.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Well, my own story is I did not have PPD, but I did have a history of depression and anxiety. And I've been on
Mm,
medication at certain points in my life. So when my husband and I got pregnant, I was like, all right, here's the symptoms. I have major risk factors. And of course, I had all the tools, right? So I'm like, all right, here's what you need to do. You need to check in with me. And I never developed PPD. I had a blast. It was the first time I'd ever not been on call in my entire life. I loved, I loved it. It was
I love that.
phenomenal. But I didn't know that that was going to be my experience. I had these major risk factors. I had depression and anxiety. I was medicated at the time. So there are medications that are safe for the baby. And I was on medication, and that's not nothing. But also, I made my husband interrogate me on a regular
Mhm.
basis. And if you are bored and sick of asking me about my symptoms, great, do it again tomorrow because it's important.
Mhm.
It's important. And we made that a part of our plan. And then it never happened. I was always okay. And I talked about it with my doctor. I talked about it with my OB. I talked about it with our family physician. I made sure everybody knew, and it's okay to ask me. And I just want to make sure we're all okay over here. And that's
Yeah.
the point. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. And I think that's what you have to do when you have those risk factors. It's just responsible.
So, for someone who had a history of either anxiety or depression, they're
Hmm.
pregnant, going through their pregnancy, mentally stable for themselves, would you
Hmm.
recommend that they almost have either a therapy appointment scheduled postpartum or a therapist in mind already, knowing that they have availability or something like that?
Sure. Absolutely. I think that safety plan, that's therapist lingo, but whatever that plan is for you, if that's something that you want and you need that help. I mean, my son's 8 now, so now we live in the time of better help and Talkspace. There's a lot of things that you can do and reach out for and a lot of resources, but if that's something that you want, if you want to go ahead and start seeing a therapist, I think that that's absolutely great because one of the other things that happens for women, and this is kind of a lesser known thing, but when you're going through a life change, and so if you have not only a mental health diagnosis or a previous mental health diagnosis, even if you're in remission, if you have previous trauma, every time you go through a life change, you're going to have to reorganize that trauma in your life and figure
Right.
out what that means to you. And so, if you have any of those things, you're going to have to figure out how your diagnosis fits in because now you've got to take care of a baby and a toddler and then a child. Like it keeps going on and keeps
Mhm,
getting more complicated because now there's
mhm.
soccer practice and I have no idea how I'm going to get you there. It just keeps morphing. But you're going to have to reorganize your life, and it is a life change. And the friends that you have might not necessarily be the friends that you have after birth. You're in a totally different club. So it is a good prior to having that baby because that's time well spent for sure. Because it's
Mhm.
going to happen anyway, and you might as well have somebody in your corner that can help you through it.
That was a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this now, for your postpartum moms, I guess just kind of like an umbrella. Are there any, I don't want to say basic because anxiety is really hard, but if you started seeing a mom and he's just looking for quote basic ways to just kind of manage the anxiety throughout the day, what are
Mhm.
some things that she can do? Because, obviously with a newborn, if you're breastfeeding or pumping, that's a chunk of your day.
Yes.
So, I mean, and even formula, cleaning bottles, prepping bottles, all the
Oh,
things.
everything. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So
everything.
just the whole gamut.
Yeah.
But what are like some just tangible, easy things that you would recommend for them to do throughout the day to
Yeah.
kind of just help manage the anxiety?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So there's definitely some things that you can do. Number one, don't put any other stress on yourself. You've got enough. So a lot of times I see women immediately, okay, I got to get on that diet. I got to start exercise. No, your system's already stressed. So let go. Do not do any of that. I even recommend, until your kid's about a year old, because then you know that they're sleeping through the night. You don't have to worry about a lot of the health issues. A lot of those things kind of fade away. So I recommend waiting a super long time before starting anything that puts stress onto your system, like changing your diet or starting to exercise, more than like a brisk walk. Unless
Mhm.
that's something that, you love and that is your outlet, absolutely keep doing that. But I wouldn't go ahead and start running 2 weeks after you gave birth and you've
Sure.
never run before. I've definitely had people try to do that. Don't do that. Also, just receiving help from other people.
Mm.
So, I mean, anything to lighten your load. Looking to your advocates, saying, all right, do you know anybody that can come just scrub toilets once a week and help me with a few things around the house? You're already paying out the yin yang for all the baby stuff. I mean, why not pay somebody $50 to clean your house?
Mm.
I had a housekeeper. It was great. That those friends that help you move, invite them. They'll come do your dishes. You get to hold the baby. They will come do whatever they need to do for you. Have those friends in your corner that will actually do stuff and not just come over and hold the baby for an hour and then be like, okay, bye. Actually have people that will help. And take time to take care of yourself. I think journaling's great. I don't journal like for long periods of time or for hours, but I do journal, I would say 3 to 15 minutes every single day. It's a good symptom tracker too. And you can there's like tons of stuff online about bullet journals and tracking emotions and things like that. That might be a good kind of shorthand for people. I think finding a hobby, even if it's just catching up on a trash TV show, or I taught myself how to crochet when I was off with my son. And
Awesome.
when we get offline, I'll show you some stuff. But find something that is just for you. I think that that's really important. And just don't forget yourself. Yes, you're taking care of another human being, and that's super important. But who's going to take care of you? And it's okay to take that time, and it's okay to take care of yourself and have something outside of diapers and baby formula and dishes and laundry. You have something outside. I would say, getting out of the house is super important. When you can, get dressed, go see friends that you don't normally get to see. If you were working, go to work, pass the baby around at work. And while you're there, you can ask for help from a place of strength. And this is what I mean by that. So a lot of people well, just ask for help. Well, what does that look like? Exactly. So let's talk about that for a second. So you can ask for help from a place of strength. You can say, hey, do you guys know anybody that can just come help me around the house, or come mow the lawn? Do you guys know anybody looking for some extra money? And get some names that way. Or, hey, Athena, hey, that manicotti you made at the potluck last month? That was awesome. I dream about it. Will you just make me some manicotti? Because that's all I want in this world. And then you get the meals. You can ask for help from that place of strength and get creative around it. Meals are huge. Freezer meals are huge. Freezer, we have a drawer freezer, and it looked like a filing cabinet of just Ziploc bags. I mean, we ate soggy chicken for a year, and I didn't care. It was fine.
Amazing.
It's fine. Have a post baby shower. I mean, get all your friends together, get your advocate to do it for you, first of all, and just say hey, everybody, we're going to have a post baby shower. Everybody bring a freezer meal, a case of diapers. I'm going to bring a pitcher of margaritas, and we're going to clean the house for Athena. That's our baby shower. Post baby shower, right? How wonderful would that be if all your friends showed up and it
would be great.
Hey, let's think creatively around these things. It doesn't have to look like you're coming from a place of weakness, because who wants to do that?
Right.
Come from a place of strength and get creative around it. And you can make it fun, and you can engage with other people. And then the more eyes that are on you, the more support that you receive, the more love that you receive, the more you're going to be able to manage those symptoms, whether you're going to therapy or whether you're medicated or whether you're not. So those are my big pieces of advice.
So many good nuggets. Did you ever have a meal train for one of your babies?
So I only have one and done. But I'm old. I made a bunch of freezer meals, and I got a bunch from my friends. So it was, literally months on months on months of doing that. And that was huge, because then you don't have to worry about where your meal's going to come from. I had a friend who, she didn't do the freezer meal thing, but she really loved takeout, and more during pregnancy and then after. But she would just have her order on all the takeout menus. And then her partner would just be all right, well, she's like, make another decision today. Just pick one. And they'd order for her, and she just wrote them all down. I thought that was brilliant.
No, that's literally genius. I should do that for my husband current day.
Oh, I know. That's good for just a random Tuesday. Yeah.
Right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Creative.
Great points. Really, a lot of great insight.
Good.
Yes.
What I'm here for.
I know. So tell the listeners your website, how they can book a consult with you for the life coaching, and your
So my company is SOULutions for Health. So it's SOULutions, and then the 4 spelled out. So SOULutionsforhealth.com. I'll send you the link to the consult. They can book a consult. It's free right from my page, and we can talk for a half an hour and figure out if we want to work together. And like I said, I work with people from all different walks of life, all over the country. So let's just have a chat if you at all you have an inkling. I have an Instagram. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. So you can find me over there. I need a social media manager so I can finally get my social media wrangled because it's not my strong suit.
Oh my gosh, I get it. Mine's bare. I understand.
Yeah.
Now, what time zone are you in for the listeners?
So I'm in Mountain Time. I'm just north of Denver.
Okay. Well, great. We'll link that. We'll have that for everyone. And then I have a famous question that I finish all my episodes with. Yeah. So if you had to describe your career thus far in the mental health realm or in the life coaching realm, whichever you prefer, what is one word that you would use to describe it?
For both, it's rewarding. It's so rewarding. It's the reason that I do this work, is just to see the transformation in people, and witnessing that is just an honor. And it's so rewarding. And yeah, that's my second paycheck for sure.
I love that. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you have such a talent. I think the way that you speak about your coaching, I can feel the passion through the microphone or speakers.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think it's
this
awesome.
Has been awesome. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad that you were agreeable and that you shared your time with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next week.